Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be another installment of my 2024 makeup inventory collection video. Today I'll be going over face palettes. Now, there might be some decluttering in this video. I don't know. I'm going in with the expectation of decluttering nothing, but sometimes the mood strikes. Anyways, this won't be like a huge declutter video. I've done some pretty brutal declutters in the past. I will link those videos down below if that's more your speed. But today is going to be just more sharing my collection, inserting in swatches of them all, and talking about them. But I'm going in with zero expectation of decluttering, just so you know. These are all my face palettes. So I categorize a face palette of anything that has two or more pans that aren't the same. So for example, if this Tom Ford quad had two pans of blushes, it would go in my blush drawer. However, this has a blush and a highlight, so it goes in my face palette drawer. I do have some here that are unopened, but for the most part, I have finally gotten around to try most of these and get my thoughts on them. But for a while, I had a lot of unopened face. I have a lot of unopened makeup in general. If you've been following me for a while, you know that. So let's just get started and stop rambling. The first thing I want to go over is my Zoya palette because this is currently in Shop My Stash. I keep this on my desk as of right now. This is the Metamorphosis Face and Eye Palette. I wanted this so bad when it first launched. I don't know what it is about this. I mean, I do. It's the butterflies. It's the colors in here. They were kind of, cool toned. We weren't seeing that many of this color story in the beginning. So, in the beginning of the cool tone craze. So I picked it up. I'm finally getting around to testing and trying it. So really excited to continue to do that. I am pre-filming a little bit, so it might not be in Shop My Stash later on once you're seeing this, but as of now, I've used it a couple of times and I'm really enjoying it. I love all the eyeshadow shades, and this is like a cute little palette. It's just unfortunate that for some reason we as in collectively, not just me, I hear a lot of people say they don't reach into their face palettes like they want to. So after that, let's tackle my unopened ones because I don't have too many. I have this Buxom Straight Up Eye and Cheek palette, and this is I don't know if this has a shade to it, but I don't know what it is about this little face palette on Ulta that just got me. I really wanted this. I think it's just a super cute basic bitch palette. I don't know. I really like this. I haven't used it yet, but I could see myself traveling with it. I think it's really pretty. Then I have the Ofra Cosmetics Life's of Draft palette. This is the collaboration with Samantha March. I don't know, again, what my deal is, why I haven't opened it yet, but I really want to give it the love it deserves when I open it. So I think that's why I just haven't. It has, I believe, so it has 8 eyeshadows, and then it has a bronzer, blush, and highlight, if memory serves, but it is still sealed. This is on my list to pull into a Shop My Stash. I just haven't yet. I pulled this Jouer one first. Then I have this Laura Lee Los Angeles Blush Aesthetic Cheek Palette. This should be in my blushes, but it's not because I believe it has a highlighter. Yeah, it has one highlighter in here, so that's why I'm keeping it in my face palette drawer. This is really pretty. This is the last thing really that Laura Lee Los Angeles came out with, I feel before she kind of just I feel she's not really doing makeup anymore, really, is she? I kind of feel like she has just dropped that. Unfortunately, the box is prettier than the actual component, which is sad because I don't keep the boxes anymore. I just decided to not be that person. It's too much of a hassle. I don't reach for my products when I have to take them out of boxes. I just don't. So unless it's extra special, I really try not to keep the boxes. But I kind of want to do a full face video on just influencer brands. So I need to like do that and see if I have a full face. I should like have a full face of different stuff from different influencers over the time. So that's a video idea. Let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. And then the last unopened palette I have is the Physicians Formula Butter Collection. This was a collab. I can't read this because of the cursive. I can normally read cursive. I'm not an idiot, but like I have a hard time reading this. I think Weili Hung was her name. And it comes with a highlighter, a blush, a bronzer, and bronzer. 2 bronzers and 2 highlighters. The reason I bought this is because I love the butter bronzer. This little shade saver is attached, but I love the bronzer. I've gone through a full size of the butter bronzer, and I have like half of one left. I have a pretty decent pan in it. So 2 highlighters, 2 blushes, 2 bronzers. The reason I believe I didn't declutter this is because this shade here is like out of the pan. I don't know if you could see that, but it actually like falls out. So I decided to keep this and just not declutter it, or else I probably would, only because I don't use face palettes as much as I should. And that's the only reason, honestly. Other than that, like I will get use out of these bronzers and blushes and highlighters eventually. It's just kind of big and bulky. So those are all of my unopened or unused. Now let's go through all of my opened palettes. Let's just start off with this, since this was like the first thing I grabbed for. This is the Tom Ford Skin Illuminating Powder Duo in number 7 Incandescent. Blush, highlight, very, very glowy. I don't normally love a glowy blush. I bought this because like Mel Thompson couldn't stop raving about it. I was super into Mel Thompson for a while. I still think she was a very, very talented creator. So it has a blush here and then a highlight. Really pretty. I don't feel like this is like perfect for my skin tone. I definitely like have to try and make this work for me. However, it's really pretty. I could never declutter it, and I have decluttered like Tom Ford products before. This one I will always keep. I wanted this for so long. Then these are all the Hourglass palettes that I've kept. I have decluttered quite a few. And honestly, do I need this many more? I do not, but that's where we're at. So I have the Elephant palette from Holiday 2022. Definitely probably my favorite. So let's just swatch these out. How am I going to do this? I'm going to do it like this. I am not going to read you the names. I'm just going to swatch them out. But there's the 2 blushes, the bronzer. Hourglass products don't swatch well. We all know this. This is the highlight. And these are the 2 finishing powders, which you're not going to see very well. So that's the Elephant palette. Like I said, this is my favorite palette out of all the ones that I own. Really, really love this one. Don't regret it at all. Want to maybe one day finish it. One day. I have the Butterfly palette. Here's what this looks like. This is definitely the one geared more towards light skin tones. So we have the highlight here. Then we have, let's just do the blushes together, even though they don't go that way in the palette. There are the 2 blushes. The only thing I don't like about this one is it doesn't have a bronzer in this palette. So then it has 3 finishing powders. Am I in frame? That's the question. And they're all pretty light. So I wish the colors were just different in this Butterfly one, but I do like these 3 maybe a little bit more than the Elephant. Just it doesn't have a bronzer. Then the last 2 Hourglass palettes I have, this one is the Unlocked palette, which looks like this. So this one has, again, 2 blushes. This one is really pretty too. Then it has a bronzer. And we have a highlight here, stunning highlight, and 2 finishing powders, which of course you're not going to see, but there they are. I really like this one as well, which is why I kept it. I think I had like 6 or 7 Hourglass palettes at one point. I had like both marble ones and I decluttered those. These are all the ones I kept. This is the very first Hourglass palette. So old, the lighting edit palette. And I've gotten some use out of this. This was like my first Hourglass product when, I mean, I don't even want to guess how old this is. We're not going to talk about it. We're just not. I just love it though. And I've gotten use out of this. So like part of me just wants to finish it, I think is what it is, before I get rid of it. I will continue to use it until the powders don't work because that's just who I am. But here are the 2 blushes. And then this one also has a bronzer. It is, you can see the quality is going down, like it's just a little bit more powdery. And then this one has 3 finishing powders. And they all have pretty good dips in them. So they are really nice. Like I said before in my powder video, if you haven't seen that one yet, Hourglass powders aren't my favorite in comparison to some other powders as far as finishing powders, but I do really like them. I spent so much money on them, so it's hard for me to maybe let go. And yeah, I don't know, even if I decided to one day get rid of this first palette, I think that I would put it in like my makeup memory box because it is something that like I had when I just didn't have a lot of makeup. Let's now go over Charlotte Tilbury. I have a few Charlotte Tilbury ones. So I have the original Film Star Bronze and Glow. Don't buy this size anymore. Now she comes out with a mini, which is so much better. This is, I know some people hate this product, but I actually quite like it. I think if you're my skin tone, it's completely fine. The highlight, while it looks really nice in this swatch, it does take some building up. It's a fairly subtle highlight in my opinion, but you know, I like both the bronzer and the highlight. I won't be getting rid of that. I have the Instant Look in a Palette Gorgeous Glowing Beauty. This has 3 eye shades, 2 cheek shades, a highlight, and a bronzer. Let's do the eye shades first, and I did that in the wrong order. So here's the eye, like this. Definitely like my color story. Then we have the highlight, the 2 blushes. This is definitely like a glowy blush. And then the bronzer here. Again, like her bronzers are pretty light. And while this is a face palette, like I like that this is an everyday face palette and it has everything in it. You have everything you need to create an actual face look. Sometimes my problem with a face palette is it doesn't have bronzer, blush, and highlight. Like I talked about the butterfly palette. I don't know why, it just really like irks me if I have to bring an additional product. Like if I bring this butterfly palette traveling, I have to bring a bronzer. I can't just bring this because I don't have a bronzer. So that's why I actually really do enjoy this one. Unfortunately, all of her like Instant Look in a palettes were limited edition. So that's kind of a bummer. You can't really get this anymore. I really wanted the Stone Rose palette. Is that this? No. I really wanted the Stone Rose palette, and I thought that I purchased it, but maybe I didn't. It's hard to know because there was a time where I was traveling a lot, so I wasn't sending the makeup directly to me. I was sending it to my sister's house. So I thought I had ordered it, but I guess I didn't, and that one was just lost forever. Let's do this other instant palette. This is Pretty Blushed Beauty before we do the other ones. So this one's clearly a lot lighter. And what I do like about this one specifically is that it also has a face powder. So let's just swatch it. what am I doing? Here are the eyes. So you do have like a nice transition shade. You don't have to reach into the bronzer for that. You have a really nice just all over lid shade and then like an even shinier lid shade. This one's really, really pretty. A lot lighter than this one. The face powder is just a face powder, nothing special. Then you have the blush here, which is pretty light and rosy, and a highlight. I mean, this is not for multiple skin tones, and I can't remember if she came out with multiple depths for this. This was a while ago. And then here's the bronzer. Really pretty palette. This is making me want to pull it out more. This is like a perfect travel palette. I really like this. I forgot how much I liked this. All right, that needs to stay on the forefront of my mind. And then the last Charlotte Tilbury little palette that I have is the Pillow Talk Quad, the Beautifying Face palette that came out holiday 2022, right? Yes. And it has 2 blushes, 2 highlights. One of my favorite holiday purchases of 2022, if I'm being honest. Let's swatch the highlights together. So this is like the goldy highlight. And this is the pinky highlight. And then we have the blushes. This is the brighter blush and then the more muted down blush. Like I said, I don't know what it is about this palette, but I really enjoyed this purchase. Now I know I'm like being hypocritical because it doesn't have a bronzer in it. Although I'm fine with that because I don't know. The Hourglass ones just bother me. I don't know what to say. Like for some reason, it does not bother me that this doesn't have a bronzer, but it does bother me that the Hourglass one doesn't. So those are my Hourglass ones. Let's see. I have a lot of Natasha Denona. Don't want to blind you. I have Bobbi Brown and let's do Pat McGrath and Kaja. And Smashbox, since those are like my one-offs. So the Kaja stack I have in 01 Butter Up. This I wanted to like because a lot of people like this. It has a blush, a highlight, if I can open it, as well as a bronzer. Now what I don't like about this is that it's not all powder and it's not all cream. I would have liked this more if it was all of one type of consistency, either all creams or all powders. The bronzer is a cream. So here's what that looks like. And then the highlight is a powder and the blush is also a powder. And so I just find myself, because I do all of my creams and then I do all of my powders. So I have to set this down, reach for other products, and then come back to it. And I feel like that defeats the purpose of a face palette. And that's why I guess like, that's just my issue with it. Honestly, I don't have anything else other than that to say about it. I wouldn't recommend it purely based on that. It really bothers me. The Pat McGrath Celestial Odyssey. This is the Divine Blush and Glow Trio. I have the one in Galactic Sun. This was one of her like first big holiday collections, and it has 2 blushes and a highlight. The blushes are in Divine Rose, Desert Orchid, and then the highlights in Golden Nectar. So, make sure I'm in frame there. The blushes, I really keep this around for the blushes. This is Desert Orchid and this is Divine Rose because I don't have those as singles. The highlights I find in this palette, because I had the other one that she came out with as well, I don't find the formula to be as good as her singles. Granted, this is like more powdery. Her singles are more of like a baked gelée formula. And they're way more expensive. Like I think one highlight is the same price or even more expensive than this trio was. So I get it, but I don't love the highlight in this. I decluttered my other one because the tones just weren't for me. And I really only keep this for the blushes, if I'm being honest. This Smashbox Cali Contour palette, this is old, but I have to say, like, I love this freaking palette because it has everything that you could need. Now, I did have one shade break, but it was a setting kind of brightening powder, I believe. And that's the one that I would have used the least. It was like a matte highlight. But it has a contour, a bronzer, a blush, and then 2 highlights. I don't really use this. It's a little bit dark. I brought this with me on my trip to Arizona. That's where I primarily grew up. I now live in France, if you're new here. So I took a trip in 2022. I can't believe it's been almost 2 years. Like, I honestly cannot. And I was there for 2 months. And I only brought this palette as my face palette. So I love this palette. Let's swatch it out. Here's the bronzer, the contour. Love this contour shade. Here is the blush. I love the tone of this blush. I could use the bronzers in my eyes. I really tried to pack light for that trip because I was bringing as much as I could back from my storage unit that's in Arizona. And then let me do the highlights. There's that one, and then there's the dark one. On really lazy days, like, I would just use the bronzers on the eye and use this as an eyeshadow. That's kind of how I get use out of that one, and call it a day. Love this palette. Like, I know I bought this off of an influencer recommendation, and zero regrets. Like, I really do have no regrets on that. We have Bobbi Brown and we have Natasha. So let's do Bobbi Brown first. I have 2 palettes from them, and the first one is the Sculpt and Glow palette. I have the one in medium. Yes. And the reason I have that is because the one that was in light, I already had the highlight for it. And then I ended up actually decluttering the highlight because now I have the highlight in this palette, so I didn't need both a single of the highlight and one in a palette. But originally, that's why I bought the medium in this. Still happy with that decision. I love this palette. 100% recommend. This was not limited edition. They're all baked products. You have a contour, kind of bronzy shade. You have this beautiful orange coral blush, and then you have the highlight in gold. This is like her standard shimmer brick highlight. And I really love this palette. This is like what I'm talking about in an all-in-one palette because it has a bronzer, blush, and highlight. Like, I can just bring this on a trip and I don't have to bring any other complexion products. That's what I want. It's just simple, easy. Love the tones in here. So summery. Love the blush. I don't have a lot of blushes in like that bright corally shade. It is teetering. It is teetering on too dark for me. Fully aware of that, but I'm still happy that I got the medium over the light, and I can't recommend this enough. This was a limited edition, so I don't know if they still have this face palette, but this is the Luxe Eye and Glow palette this was like the cool version. So it has a highlight and then it has 6 Luxe eyeshadows. I believe I did a dedicated video to this, which again will be linked down below and above in the cards if you're interested. So the highlight is in Pink Glow, which I said I already had in a single, so I ended up decluttering that. This is what that looks like. And then for the eyeshadows, like, just the most beautiful tones. I'm so happy. They did a warm and a cool version. I got the cool version clearly. So that's this side of the eyeshadows. And then we'll do this side, which is a little bit more matte heavy. I personally like that they have mattes in here and not just like special shades because I find it a little bit more one and done versatile. This shade here, so pretty. The mattes you're not seeing too much on my arm here, but on the eyes, they do build up really nice. This Luxe eyeshadow formula is literally top notch. I talked about it in my speed reviews because I had the 2 duos from Holiday and how much I just love the Luxe eyeshadow formula. Even though these are limited edition palettes, like, I will consider repurchasing them over and over again because I think that it is such a good deal primarily, even though I don't love face palettes, but I feel like Bobbi Brown does the perfect type of face palette of what I'm looking for. And then last up, I just have my Natasha Denona. It's actually pretty sad. It's not sad, but it's a lot lower than it used to be because I used to have every single one of these freaking palettes, these little quads. And I decluttered all of them except for the tan, because the other ones just weren't for me, honestly. And it was the same issue that I had with the Hourglass, and just that like it wasn't really like a all-encompassing palette for me. I liked this one the most, even though it's really only bronzy shades and some highlights. Let's get to swatching. Let's do the powders first. So you have this really bronzy highlight here. You have this kind of more, to me, like everyday highlight. And then this is the bronzer, which is kind of more of like the bronzer blush, very similar to something we'll talk about in a second here. And then the cream glow looks like this. Still has quite a deep base to it, but this is the one that I just like the most, so I've kept it around. I wish that I loved these palettes more than I do because I love the concept of them, but for some reason, like they just didn't speak to me as much. I kind of wish I'd kept the bloom, but not really. I have these two minis, the Bronze and Glow and the Blush and Glow. These are my favorite out of everything, all the Natasha Denona. So this is what I was talking about. I'm curious to see this bronzer against that tan bronzer. And then you have a highlight here. So I'm gonna swatch these next to each other. So this is the bronzer in the Bronze and Glow, and then this is the bronzer in the tan palette. They're similar. This is like a little bit more of a rosy bronzer blush than this one, but they kind of are similar. This is a little bit more gray toned, a little bit more contoury, just a smidge, like just a hair. But really like these mini palettes. If they weren't mini and they were like a full-size duo like that, I would not like it as much, but because they're just so small and compact, love it. This is also great like to bring on travel too. Like I said, like if you really just want simple makeup, then you can just, you know, throw this as a bronzer, but also put this on the eyes as like a transition shade, and then use the highlight all over the lid and you're done. Blush and Glow maybe is like not as much of a favorite, mostly because this like blush is not super me, but I like the highlight. So here's the blush. It's lighter. I mean, it's definitely like more in trend now. Really hope I'm in frame. And there's the highlight, a little bit more subtle for Natasha Denona, definitely. I like the highlight a lot more in this one than the Bronze and Glow. So I can bring both of these and then have my face products done. So that's why I keep both of them around. And then lastly, I have the Natasha Denona Glam Face Palette in Light. It's probably not a new release anymore, but when I'm filming this, the Hyper Natural Face Palette literally just launched. I highly debated with that one because at first, I'm gonna go on a little bit of a tangent, but at first I was like, no, instant no, do not like it. And then I saw people talking about it and I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's good. Like, I like how you can pop the shades out. On this one, you can't. So I can kind of customize it more. It's just, for me, not a face palette. Like, it's not an all-encompassing face palette. So I kind of teetered on it, and ultimately, like, I decided, go with your gut instinct, do not get it. I also felt the same way about the Love one. I wanted it because of the eyeshadows so bad. Those eyeshadows and the Love face palette looked beautiful. If you have that, like, let me know. But everyone was saying that the blush was terrible, and I just couldn't pull the trigger on it. I don't even know if it's still available. Like, I might consider purchasing it, like if it was half off, maybe. Same with the new one. If you have the new one, the Hyper Natural one, let me know what you think, because I'm still like, I don't know. I want it because it's Natasha Denona, but like, do I need it? Clearly not. So this has 5 eyeshadows, a blush, and a highlight. Let's do the highlight and the blush first. My blush is still pretty creamy. Like, I know a lot of people said theirs dried out, like maybe a little bit on the top, but not really that much where I would like say it's noticeable. I still think it's pretty creamy and blendable. There are the highlight and the blush. I mean, like I said, the blush, it needs to be blended out, but mine's still in decent condition, I think. It's not fully dried out. It just kind of needs the top layer wiped off. And then for the eyeshadows here, let's see. Let's just go down in the row here. So you have like the dark matte brown, the darker shimmer, the mid-tone transition. Then you have the lighter brown and the lighter shimmer shade. So that is the Glam face palette. Happy with this purchase, really happy. I do wish it had a bronzer, but I do get over it. I do get over it because it has the eye products in it. And I really enjoy this eye color story. I think that's all in one. If these were like all topper shades like the natural palette, I don't think I would like this as much because I would have to pull for another palette. But because I can reach for this palette and this palette only, plus only need a bronzer, I'm okay with it. I'm fine with that. And really, if I really wanted to, I could use this as like a bronzer if I really, really had to, like I forgot it in my travel makeup bag or something. But that is all of my face palettes. I've done pretty good with this drawer. I'm not gonna declutter anything. This used to be like an overfilled drawer for me. So I'm happy with like the decluttering I've done in the past. I'm happy with the palettes that I have. Maybe some of my Hourglass palettes are on the chopping block, but other than that, like I love and want to reach for all of these, and that's all that you can ask for, right? So let me quickly speed this up, put this drawer back together, and we'll say goodbye. Okay, I think this is as good as I'm going to get it for now. I don't really love that, and I can't see what's underneath it, but it's okay. I'm gonna be just fine. So this is the end of this video. Let me know down below, like, are there any face palettes that you don't see in my collection that are your holy grails? I would love to know. Have you tried out the Bobbi Brown? What are your thoughts on Hourglass? I feel like a lot of us are in a chokehold where we continue to buy the limited edition holiday releases, and they like sit in our collections. I was really proud of myself for skipping on last year's palette. I really liked the snake one from last year, but I resisted and I did not get it, and I'm proud of myself, really did not need it. But this concludes the face palette makeup inventory. I hope you enjoyed it, but this is where I'm gonna leave you all. Hope you're having a great one, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.